Senators Schroer.
Here.
Senators
We have a quorum. We're going to hear two bills this morning, and I'm going to hand this over to the vice chair as I have to present in another committee. We're going to try to limit testimony to 5 minutes since we have to be out of here at a certain time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair, Senator David Gregory.
All right, we will now hear Senate Bill 36, sponsored by Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts, please proceed when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Senator Steve Roberts from Missouri's 5th District in St. Louis City. I'd like to thank the chair and the committee for affording me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 36. Senators, no wrongfully convicted person should spend a day in prison in Missouri, but unfortunately we know that does happen. In which such atrocities do occur, it's of the utmost importance that the state of Missouri do everything it can to rectify such an egregious wrong. Presently, Missouri provides for paying claims of those who have demonstrated actual innocence through DNA testing, which is a good law, but in recent cases in Missouri, we've seen that it doesn't go far enough to help some individuals. This bill expands provisions under which wrongfully convicted individuals may receive compensation from the state for their time spent in prison. These individuals leave prison now with no resources to aid their transition back into society, and this bill would provide them with legitimate opportunity to lead productive lives following egregious errors made by the state at their expense. I know there's some witnesses who've driven out here to be with us today can speak to this a little further, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Any questions for the senator? Senator, is there a particular witness you want called first?
No, I'm good to go with these over ready.
Okay. Anyone here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36? Come on up. Please just remind you to fill out a witness form if you haven't already. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Tricia Rojo Bushnell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Midwest Innocence Project. We represent folks convicted of crimes they didn't commit and work to get them out. And we also represented Chris Dunn, who was exonerated last year on July 31st, as well as Lamar Johnson, Kevin Strickland, and Ricky Kidd, all of whom together served over 128 years wrongfully convicted here in Missouri. We want to thank Senator Roberts for introducing this bill. Having worked closely with the wrongfully convicted men and women, we're intimately familiar with the difficulties that our clients experience coming home and the pain that they experience from wrongful convictions. Our clients have lost time with family and friends, holidays, birthdays, lifetime experiences that they will never get back, and in many cases lost the ability to meet a spouse, begin a family, develop a career, and invest in their future. Many of the innocent, including Kevin Strickland, Lamar Johnson, and Ricky Kidd, had children who grew up without them, missing decades of those important and precious milestones, and others were just children themselves when they were incarcerated. They had dreams and families and goals that they wanted to meet, but wrongful conviction ended all of that, depriving them not only of this time, but of an income, of pension, of access to Social Security, and hurting their earning potential and their families' earning potential for the rest of their lives. Sadly, the nightmare of this experience also doesn't end simply on exoneration. I have had the misfortune of walking someone out of prison and directly into a homeless shelter. Because the wrongfully convicted get out of prison with no money, no job experience, no credit, no access to housing, transportation, health insurance, many life necessities that we all take for granted, everyday living becomes an obstacle itself. On the most basic level, many exonerees come out with even a foundational document such as an identification ID or a birth certificate, leaving this conundrum of how do you have access to getting an ID if you don't have a birth certificate? Reordering these documents takes time and money, and even if they're able to secure them, they come out without a work history, a residential history, and no credit, and no explanation of why those things don't exist. Finding a job with a decades-long work gap is difficult, and when they do find these opportunities, a background check will still pull up these convictions for which they were wrongfully convicted. Also, importantly, no one leaves prison emotionally unscathed. Mental health experts have likened the experience of the wrongfully convicted to those who are tortured, and many come out with untreated physical ailments. Kevin Strickland, who you will hear from today, came home in a wheelchair and continues to need doctor's care. And as you will read, we had a number of individuals who were unable to make it today, including Lamar Johnson, Christopher Dunn, and Ricky Kidd, and I have written statements from them in support. As you can read in those, many come home with health conditions that continue to debilitate them. Christopher Dunn takes 9 medications every day and 2 inhalers. Not only is that medical care an issue, but access to medical care, just the cost of those medications is prohibitive. The question that I think many have is why should we compensate people for this mistake? And the reality is this mistake happens because of the way that we as a society have created a system and the way that we defend these wrongful convictions. This is not a mistake that simply belongs on one prosecutor or one defense attorney or one law enforcement officer, even if they are inadvertent mistakes. Folks have continued and the state continues to uphold those convictions for decades, stealing this time. And while we can never give back the years and the lost time and opportunity, compensation can ease the burden of this transition and at least be a start for individuals to rebuild their lives. Thank you, and we urge you to support this bill.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this witness? Just a couple quick questions for you or the bill sponsor. So I see here, if I'm reading this correctly, you could have been found convicted of multiple charges, right, if they're stacked, and you're telling me that if 3 out of the 4 you're good for, but 1 you're not, you can sue the state and recover while you sat in jail for the other 3? Am I reading this correctly?
So this bill is modeled after, this bill is modeled after a bill that was passed in Kansas in 2019. And as designed, you cannot recover money if you should have been incarcerated for something else at that same time. So if you were wrongly convicted on 3 counts, but you were still incarcerated on 1 count that was rightful, that time was still rightfully incarcerated, and so individuals would not recover for it.
Okay. And then it looks like is this bill also setting out a fund to be available for additional money for payout? I guess if it's not appropriated, is there a fund that it says monies in the state legal expense fund shall be available for payment?
I believe that's already exists.
I am on, Senator, I'm on your page 7, bottom. I'm just trying to figure out where we get the fund. Like, let's say the legislature doesn't appropriate. Is this a way for additional funding for a mechanism like this?
I believe they already have it funded.
Yes, Senator, I believe a fund already exists because Missouri actually does provide compensation, but only for individuals who are currently exonerated with the use of DNA evidence under a specific DNA statute. So that fund has to exist for those individuals who are able to collect under that statute.
So yeah, this is just identifying which pot we're pulling from.
Very good. Yes, there is a fund that already exists and it's paid from general revenue. I'm just wondering why we have monies in state legal expense funds shall be available. Okay.
This is already the content of everything, yeah.
So my understanding, just from a side conversation, is that the state legal expense fund is an additional fund to tap for these types of situations. So there is a fund that exists, and this seems to be an additional, more augmented type fund. Very good. Any further questions for this witness or the sponsor? Seeing none. Thank you so much for your testimony. Any other witnesses to testify in favor? Come on up. Just a reminder to fill out the witness form. Please proceed when you are ready, sir.
All right, I'm ready. Yes, good morning. My name is Joseph Amran, and I'm here to testify that I spent 17 years here on Missouri's death row, and I was exonerated in 2003, and I've been out 21 years, and it's been a struggle ever since I've been out. You know, a lot of people don't understand that mentally, physically, financially, you know, you need all the help you can get. And when I got out in 2003, there was nothing available to me. There was no support groups and nothing like this. And what really frustrated me was the fact that even though I was exonerated, the guys who was actually guilty of their charges, you know, the state provided them with food stamps, Section 8, Medicaid, Medicare, medications and everything, and they was actually guilty for their charges. Whereas the exoneree, none of this stuff is available to us. You know, there might be a few things available to us now, but nothing compared to what needs to be. You know, I mean, physically and mentally, you know, I lost all of that. I didn't just lose my 20s and 30s and 40s. You know, mentally, physically, I lost a lot. You know, I'm suffering every day. You know, don't have the money, the funds to provide for therapy and stuff like this here, you know. And, you know, for the jobs and stuff, you know, it's hard to get a job. You know, I'm 68 years old, you know, so it's hard to get a job, you know, and for trying to build yourself up or something, I mean, with no background, no education, it's hard to, after spending 27 years in prison, to build your life back, you know, with your mental issues, you know, stuff like this here. And then jobs, you know, is not a job which you could build off of, you know, because it's just minimum jobs. You know, like I've been out 21 years, and I've been struggling ever since I've been out. You know, and like I said, we have made some progress, but there's a lot of things, more things we need to do for us helping the exonerees. You know, the state looks at it like, you know, you was exonerated, let you go, and that's it. Whereas, you know, I feel like the state is really responsible for me being wrongly convicted. So I think they are responsible to help me to deal with the things I've been through. I watched 64 people get executed, you know, and like I said, I've been out 21 years, and nothing had really came my way as far as helping me. You know, I get a check every month for $700-something, you know, because I had no work experience. I can't retire. You know, they said I need 2 more quarters, which in my line, it might take me another 30 years to get them 2 quarters, you know, because my pay scale is really basic. So, like I said, that's what I'm here for, because, you know, we have become a class of people of ourselves, exonerees. There's so many of us, you know, so it's time for us to try to start putting something on the books as far as helping exonerees. You know, I mean, I'm one of the fortunate ones who can sit here and talk to you guys, but there's so many guys that was wrongly convicted that couldn't sit here and talk to y'all because of what they've been through, you know, and I go through it every day. You know, every day I wake up, I find something different. I got something else I got to deal with. You know, even though I wake up every morning feeling like I won the lottery, you know, for being exonerated, at the same time, I wake up find a new problem. I find something different. You know, and, you know, there's just so many things that affect you for being wrongly convicted, and a lot of the things, you know, you don't know how to deal with them. You know, every day. You know, so every day, like I said, I feel good every day I wake up, but at the same time, like I got to deal with this again. You know, I don't have therapies and. You know, I don't have no support group, you know. You know, I've been lucky, I got a big family, but, you know, come from a poor background, it's limited. You know, and like I said, there's so many of us that have been exonerated that I just feel like it's time for us to try to put something together to help us. You know, because we don't want nobody to be exonerated and then come to the streets and 3 months or 3 years later, they on the news for another charge. You know, because they didn't have no support. You know, they didn't have a job. They didn't have anybody in their corner. You know, and so we can try to avoid that, you know, and that's my main issue, try to help the people who's coming behind me.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for being here. Your testimony is very compelling. We appreciate it, and obviously what happened to you is terrible. So we appreciate you being here. Any questions for Joe? Seeing none. Thanks again, Joe. Just a reminder, fill out the witness form. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36? Please proceed when you're ready, sir.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Strickland, and I served 43 years, 7 months throughout Missouri for a crime I didn't commit. They used me to open up all the new prisons that y'all built in Missouri since 1978. All right. I strongly support this legislation because it would provide me and other wrongly convicted people in Missouri with the financial support necessary to rebuild. Check rebuild. I'm gonna start with build. I never had a life. They took mine at 18. Build a life after suffering the terrible injustice of being incarcerated as an innocent person. All right? It's impossible to describe what it's like to lose your life. I just ask you to go in your closet and lock yourself in for one day, and somebody feeds you through a hole and tell you when you can do this and do that to begin with, and not be able to turn your hot water on for your shower in the wintertime and things like that, and then we'll get to whether or not someone should be compensated. My daughter was just 2 weeks old when I went in. I was about to enter the military. I might have been Colonel Powell, who knows? But they had something else in mind for me. You won't serve there, you'll serve here. And that's what I did for 43 years and 7 months. I missed her entire life. She got grown children now. I'm not grandpa or daddy. I lost everything. I intentionally started that family. A child myself, at 18 years old, I never had the opportunity to become a person I should be today. I never got to start a career or shoulder a friend or family. I don't have any friends right now today. It's impossible. I go to therapy every week. I just can't. I wonder if I'm from this planet. I'm messed up bad. I need medical. I've had 5 physical surgeries since I've been out of prison. None that I can afford to pay for. But I appreciate you paying for them for me. I mean, is that what it's supposed to be? No, I'm supposed to be able to cover that myself if I hadn't had a career and a life and insurance. Maybe I wouldn't even have the injuries if you hadn't tried me trying to walk a hole in some concrete for 50 years, okay? But the only skills given to me being the ones, that's the only skills I had. The ones I had was to survive. 134 pounds, 5'3". And they throw me in with Missouri's finest, yeah. So I'm just saying, even though I'm home, life's not easy. I'm still sometimes overwhelmed by all I have to learn. Somebody just watched me wrestle I've been out 4 years. I just wrestled in the corridor for 2 minutes just trying to put the phone on silent so I can come in here. I just can't catch up with this stuff. I feel like I will never be able to be just, a normal person. Everybody always looks at me everywhere I go right now as not just an exoneree, but that guy. I'm still being prejudiced against out here. That has nothing to do with the bill, but I'm gonna give you a little information about the damage, why a person would need compensation. I came out and I went and I looked under the bridge that I might would have had to live under. Fortunately, unlike Joe, they had put a fund me together, and I benefited from that, where I could pay for some of my surgeries and different things. But Joe didn't have one, and a lot of more exonerees don't have one. And as Joe mentioned, we come out, and it was, even with what I had, I still took 6 months to get a birth certificate and started to get Social Security cards and all that, and I still have no credit to date. And it's just, nothing can ever give me back okay, don't give me compensation. Give me them 43 years back and I'll walk out right now. They can't do that. That's what I want. They can't do that. So only thing I learned over years and looking through the media, only thing people understand is when you go in their pocket. Make them pay for what they do wrong, and in the future, they won't be so quick to make these hasty prosecutions, investigations, and different things like that. They won't be so quick to throw people on trial for crimes they didn't commit. But as long as they know there is no repercussion behind it on any level, they will continue to do it. And you will continue to support it because you're not looking into it. But like I said, I urge you to pass Senate Bill 36. We definitely need some help coming out of prison. I was fortunate to have a fund me, but other people weren't. And right now today, I'm working with a bunch of those. I still visit with them and try to assist them with the little bit I have. But I have nothing, whether you believe it or not. I have nothing. And I just like to say, please support the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for being here. How long have you been out?
November of 21.
And are you working?
5 surgeries. So when my back allowed me to stand up for 2 months, I'll work, and then it'll take me out for another. I then had 2 back surgeries. Last one 3 weeks ago. 2 new hips, hernia, dental. I mean, there's no medical care for you in there, so you come out, you have to try to get that, whether the state afford it to you or whatever. But if they don't, you need something.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to work with that.
You know.
I can imagine. Any questions for Kevin?
I'm welcome questions. I'm here for you.
Seeing none, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. We
All right,
really do
thank you.
appreciate it.
Please pass this bill.
Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36? As a reminder, please fill out the witness form. Ma'am, you may proceed when you are ready.
Good morning. Good morning. Sharon Galway-Jones here testifying today in favor of the bill on behalf of Dream.org and the NAACP of Missouri. This bill isn't about a single prosecutor making a single mistake. This bill is about an entire instrumentality of the state taking something away from one of its citizens wrongfully. We have systems in place that are supposed to keep wrongful convictions from happening. And when they all fail in a row, we as a state owe something to that citizen that we have wronged. And this bill is trying to put in place procedures to do that. As you know, Senator Gregory, the State Legal Expense Fund is the fund that the state uses to pay personal injury suits, admin lawsuits, that sort of thing, civil suits against the state. So we're just asking for the state that has failed some of these citizens to make that right, and this bill allows us to do that in a way that we can't right now.
Thank you very much. I am aware of that. So what is the current fund? Do you know what current fund they use?
I believe that is all paid out of either the State Legal Expense Fund or the county's budget, depending on how the suit's structured.
So you think it's already being paid out of the legal expense fund?
That would be my understanding, because that is the fund used to pay civil suits against the state. I know there has been at least one lawsuit that was directly against the county that had some extenuating circumstances,
So
and the
the
county
county.
paid that. But generally, as you know, these things are paid out of the State Legal Expense Fund.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you so much. Any questions for this witness?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thanks so much for being here. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Brian Bernskater here on behalf of the Missouri Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. You all have heard very compelling testimony. We want to thank Senator for bringing this forward and certainly urge your all support of it.
Thank you so much. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thanks for being here. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36? Please proceed when you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Senate Committee. My name is Kurt Wickemer, and I represent the Missouri Catholic Conference. Justice dictates we provide for those who are wrongly convicted, and we appreciate efforts to increase that payout amount. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill forward.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thanks so much. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Sack. I'm really grateful for Senator Roberts for, again, taking the lead on this measure. Want to commend Senator Gregory, you, and also Senator Schroer for having such a quick hearing for this bill early in the session. Hopefully that bodes well for this measure to finally move forward and become law. In July of 2003, I had the pleasure, but also it was really kind of a bit of a horror of being outside the Cole County Jail while right after Joe was being finally set free. He came out of that jail with a trash bag of his possessions. No apology from the state, nothing. The man was wrongly convicted, like he said before, 17 years under a death sentence, very nearly executed, and the state hasn't ever made that right. We speak repeatedly in our society. When people do wrong in our communities, we say, you need to go to prison because you've done wrong. You got to make things right by us, by our society. But yet we continue to kind of have this double standard. This is an opportunity to try to to try to correct that, to move beyond that kind of hypocrisy, to try to, like folks have said before, we can't restore what Kevin Strickland, what Joe Amrine lost during the time they were wrongly held. What we can do is at least offer something, to try to help make their life right, and as was said before, to try to minimize the chances that some rogue sheriff or somebody who has an axe to grind tries to push a wrongful conviction forward. It's very, very seldom those kind of things happen, but it tarnishes the whole system. So we need to try to make the system right, do better by the people of the state. And I think, it's really kind of a modest sum, quite frankly, when we look at what kind of compensation is being discussed. When you think in terms of lawsuits that the state faces otherwise, those are pretty ugly realities. So I appreciate the intent of this measure. I hope you folks move it forward. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none at this point, Senator, I'm going to have to move quickly. We're running out of time on this bill. We're going to go to 60 seconds per favorable witness. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 36? That works out well. Very good. Anyone here to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 36? You are not limited to 60 seconds because you are the first in opposition. Sir, 5 minutes. Please proceed when you are ready.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Locke Thompson, Cole County Prosecuting Attorney, here for the Missouri Prosecutors Association. I do want to say that in spirit, we do support the concept of the bill. However, some of the language in there would allow for payments to individuals not found to be actually innocent. And I know that we've worked on language before, I believe in 2023, supporting this concept and making payments to individuals found actually innocent, like Mr. Strickland. But based on the language that we have here right now, we're opposed.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Will you, questions for the witness? Senator? Oh, yeah, I'll go first. First off, thank you for being here. Do you have specific examples of the language or fixes that you'd like to see?
I do have a list of the Senate bills. It would basically be, having a judgment reversed or vacated and being found not guilty at trial does not necessarily equate to actual innocence, and I think that's where our big issue lies.
That's correct.
Right.
Obviously, the presumption is always innocent.
Correct.
Otherwise. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love to see what you're thinking, what kind of
Yep.
changes you guys are hoping for, and consider it. Please send it to the chairman as well as me if you
Certainly do
can.
that, yes.
I appreciate it. Any other questions for this witness, Senator May?
Yeah. So, I don't know, it sounds like splitting hairs to me. So help me understand,
Sure.
What you're talking about. When you say proven innocent, and I don't understand. If someone was incarcerated and they're now found to not have committed the crime, what's the difference? Tell me. I'm not understanding.
So when someone is found actually innocent, there is a finding. There is a finding of clear and convincing evidence that that person did not commit the crime. Versus if someone has been incarcerated, goes to trial, it's tried in front of a jury. The jury says there's not enough to prove that person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe it is likely that they did do this thing, but it's not quite to the level required for the state, and say that person did actually commit that crime and just had the benefit of being found not guilty by a jury. Those are the people we don't think should be entitled to that.
Oh, so you're talking about at the onset, not someone who has spent 10 years in jail and then they found evidence to find that person to be exonerated. You're talking about in the initial trial. This doesn't catch the initial trial. Is that what we're talking about? Like, say, for instance, if someone commits a crime, they're on trial for that crime, and they're found not guilty. Are you saying that this
Well, certainly we wouldn't want that. We also want to keep the standard of clear and convincing evidence for showing of actual innocence, as opposed to preponderance of the evidence.
Clear and convincing, okay.
Yeah.
So what would that be?
So clear and convincing is a higher standard. Preponderance of the evidence, it's like your 51% versus 50%. Clear and convincing is a step below proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions for this witness? Thank you so much for being here. If you could email me some specifics, that would be great. Thanks so much. Anyone else to testify against or in opposition to Senate Bill 36? Seeing none, anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, you have 1 minute to close.
Yes, thank you again for hearing this legislation, especially in the Judiciary in our first committee hearing. Just wanted to echo one point that Joe was making. You know, when folks have been released on probation or parole, they have a probation officer, and there's certain things that the state provides to help them. If you're exonerated for a crime, none of those are available to you. So we're just really trying to make sure that these folks have the tools they need to lead successful, productive lives and an attempt to correct a wrong done by the state that we can never fully do. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 36. The committee will stand at ease for 2 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 60, which claims to provide the additional tools to combat the epidemic of fentanyl that is harming our children and devastating our communities. Fentanyl now is the #1 killer of adults in America, ages 18 to 45. This bill addresses critical concerns about child welfare by broadening the scope of behaviors that constitute endangerment and imposing stricter penalties for offenses involving highly dangerous substances such as fentanyl, carfentanil, and their variants. So this bill essentially does 3 things. It expands the list of prohibited substances to include fentanyl and carfentanil, reflecting the serious public health risks they pose. It establishes a mandatory minimum sentence for offenses involving these substances, emphasizing the legislature's commitment to deterring their manufacture or distribution in environments where children are present. And it enhances penalties for cases resulting in physical injury or death, ensuring a strong response to the most egregious acts of child endangerment. These changes are designed to protect Missouri's children from harmful environments and to hold accountable those who jeopardize their well-being. I'm a little out of breath. Obviously, it's good we're back in session so I can get my cardio. So, running up and down those stairs this morning, I apologize for the bated breath, but that's the intent of this bill. You know, I've had an opportunity to go to the border several times. Fentanyl is something that is really impacting our communities. It's not something that we've talked a lot about, but it is an epidemic that is up and coming, and the ramifications, I believe we're just starting to see the results of that. I've had constituents in my district who their children have been killed by fentanyl because it's been laced with other things. And so this seeks to remedy that and expand the repercussions of endangering children with those substances. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the Senator? Senator May.
So, we're talking about street drugs, right?
Fentanyl, carfentanil, yeah.
Okay, because, you know, the question is, do these provisions of the bill separate those who medically prescribe either of these drugs, or does it categorize users in the same category?
I believe that it does. So, and this specifically is dealing with children, so exposing those drugs essentially to children. So, you know, where they're laced with other things, it's targeted to the production of around children and also giving the substance to children. So I'm not aware of any medical.
They do, in small doses.
So
it's prescribed in a medical environment in small doses based on whatever the condition is when they come in or something
I'm
like
happy
that.
to look into that, Senator May, and make sure that we're not.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that we're talking about, you know, drugs that are manufactured, you know, for the sale of, or you get what I'm saying?
Yes, a prescription. You're talking about the difference between a prescription and street drugs, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's our goal, is to target that as well. So let me look into that and alleviate those concerns that you have.
Yeah, and one other question.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, I know you said, so are we increasing or are we making mandatory? We're making a mandatory minimum of 5 years or a mandatory maximum of 5 years.
It does strengthen the criminal justice system when it comes to exposing children or selling to children.
So it's a mandatory 5 years?
Yes.
Okay, but that's just the floor?
There is a max of 10.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. And just for clarification, yes, Senator, on page 12, you can see that this limits it only to unlawfully manufactures or attempts to manufacture. So a lawful manufacture or a lawful distribution by a prescription would not be included in this. Thank you. Any other questions for the Senator? Seeing none. Senator, are there any particular witnesses you want to call first?
No.
Any witnesses to testify in favor of Senate Bill 60? Please proceed when you are ready.
Good morning. Again, Locke Thompson, Cole County Prosecutor for the Missouri Prosecutors Association. Just want to go on the record in support of this bill. I don't need to probably sit up here and go into great detail about how often fentanyl is occurring on the streets nowadays. The number of times we see it getting mixed into other substances such as methamphetamine or heroin make it particularly dangerous. As you know, a very small dose can be fatal. And so we think this is a fairly common sense bill and are in support.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thanks so much for being here. Anyone else testify in favor of Senate Bill 60? We are going to be limiting testimony to 1 minute or less. Please proceed when you are ready.
I will be very brief. Chair, members of the committee, Jessica Petrie-Telemack here today on behalf of the Missouri Network Against Child Abuse. We are the group of the 15 child advocacy centers that serve children who have experienced abuse or neglect. Just want to point out that in the most recent data we have, annual fentanyl deaths among children nearly doubled. So this is a real crisis with just how potent this substance is, and appreciate you all taking this so seriously. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here. Anyone else to testify in favor of Senate Bill 60? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 60? As a reminder, please fill out a witness form, and Lisa, you may proceed when you are ready.
Lisa Panette, Armor Vine. First of all, I have the utmost respect for the intent of this bill, and I thank the senator for bringing it. Since it was Holly Rader's, we also liked that bill, but we had problems with it, so I just want to go over the same problems that we had last year with the bill. It's endangering the welfare of a child in the first degree, and now we're putting that whole category, which is 568.045, under endangering the welfare of a child. So when I read the first line, it says, knowingly acts in a manner that creates a substantial risk to the life, body, or health of a child less than 17 years old. And so we see how health has been weaponized during COVID, and now we're saying this is opening Pandora's box. It isn't just about fentanyl. If we said we're going to do this just in regard to fentanyl, fine. But now we're saying we're going to open up every category, which, by the way, there's 4 lines here that it would apply to. And this is very open-ended. So this is a big concern on how this could be weaponized, and this should be narrowly tailored just to the fentanyl piece.
Thank you. Can you explain that just a little? I'm not sure what you mean. All I'm seeing is added is the fentanyl and carfentanil.
But you have to go back to the definition of what the definition is of endangering the welfare of a child. So that's in the statute 568.045.
Yeah, it's right here. It's right here on page 12.
And the first line of what that is knowingly acts in a manner that creates a substantial risk to the life, body, or health of a child.
Right. And then it says or, and it goes on to number
Yes,
2. And those are already
or any
in
of
law.
those. I know, but we're changing the penalty. She's changing the penalty. So now the penalty becomes, let's see, where is it? A felony. They're
So
increasing
you don't
it to
wanna
a felony.
You don't want the penalty increased for people who knowingly engage in sexual conduct with kids
No,
under the age
I
of
do.
17?
Yeah, I mean, the others, fine. It would be the first one. Because, again, it's so open and broad that good parents, could be taken from
so
their
you
children.
just don't like the first part that's already in law is what you're saying?
Well, it's not a felony right now.
Okay. And you don't want it to be a felony?
I don't
the
want
first
it to
one.
be a felony, no. I mean,
Just the
that's-
first one. But the second one, the sexual
Yes,
conduct, all the
sure.
rest of these, you're good being a felony except for
Yes.
number 1?
Yes.
Okay. I'm understanding your testimony. Thank you. Any further questions for this witness?
Yes.
Senator May.
So you're talking about it's still subjective. Number 1 is subjective.
Yes.
So when you're talking about the health of a child, it could be somebody's opinion. Somebody can call in, a hotline and say,
Absolutely.
just vicariously, because they don't like the way you parent or something like
Yes.
that. And you can fall into increased penalty and a higher sentence.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we can see, even, the Amish community, for example. They don't believe in having some of the procedures that others do. And I think that can become a problem. And we don't want the laws weaponized against certain groups of people.
Absolutely, and Jehovah's Witnesses as well, yes. Okay, thank you.
Further questions for this witness? Senator Roberts.
Briefly, yeah. I think what you're getting at is on page 6, line 160. So I guess right now, endangering the welfare of a child in the first degree isn't considered and then this incorporates that into it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. As a reminder, please fill out a witness form. Anyone else to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 60? Seeing none, anyone here to testify for informational purposes? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
I appreciate your time listening to this bill, and thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 60, and it concludes this Judiciary Committee. We are adjourned.